Welcome to the Transforming Lives panel podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Sharmin Prince.
And I'm your other host, Mitzi Dadoun.
Today, before we continue, just join us in a brief grounding exercise by taking a deep inhale through your nose and out through your mouth. Again, take another deep inhale and exhale. In and out. In and let go of everything that didn't serve you today on the exhale. Take another deep inhale so that you could be grounded and centered with us and let go of everything that did not serve you, all the plans that you have for the rest of the evening. Just let it go for the next 30 to 45 minutes. Another deep inhale. And let it go. And now join us back. Thank you for joining us for that brief breathing exercise. Today we have a guest, G. George Graham, who is a multifaceted coach and author of 28 books, and he is based in Boston. He's dedicated to helping others discover and follow their true azimuth. And it's a unique direction that brings purpose and fulfillment to life. As a career, business, and psychedelic support coach, Scott guides clients to align their lives with their deepest values and aspirations. Outside of coaching, Scott manages a nonprofit farm animal rescue. He participates in Tough Mothers. He teaches Sun 7-3, Tai Chi, paddle boards with his dogs, and explore New England's state parks. His daily life is deeply grounded in spiritual meditation practices, and he's committed to his community. Scott, welcome to the Transforming Lives panel podcast.
Really nice. It's so nice. I didn't do this with a therapist. After I told you all that, but this is why. So this is what happened with me. As part of my life with Brian, we built 2 time capsules. And like everything, I guess I've done in my life, right? I don't write 1 book. I write 28. I'm shooting for 100. Crazy. So it wasn't like this small little time capsule. We filled up an entire Home Depot bucket with stuff from 1998. It was our 10-year anniversary together. And then we did it again in 2013. It was our 25th anniversary. So I have these huge 5-gallon buckets filled with stuff. Old memories, old receipts, all the stuff you would think, pictures, because who knew when we didn't have digital stuff in 1998. But what we had in the time capsules, in addition to all of this stuff, were letters to the future. And so we anticipated opening these up at our 50th anniversary. And so 10 years in, we wrote a letter figuring it's not going to be open 40 years from now. 25 years in, we wrote another letter. It's not going to be open up 25 years from now. Other people wrote letters. My parents wrote letters. Half the people that wrote the letters are all dead. It was like, it's like a ticking time bomb. I couldn't even think about it. I couldn't even talk about it without crying. On top of that piece, for every single time capsule, I wrote Brian a letter. He wrote me a letter. He wrote a letter to his future self. I wrote a letter to my future self. And so that was 8 letters in those 2 time capsules. And his was not fluffy, but I was not expecting the stuff that I wrote in my letters. And I was expecting to have a difficult time with his letters, right? Because it wasn't, I'm a coach, right? So I'm coaching people to not write fluffy stuff. How you doing? How are things? What's going on? Are we still watching things on video cassette tapes, right? Now, there were a number of letters like that, but our letters were more, hey, how we doing? Are you still being so rigid about this in our relationship? I hope you got over it. Still, are you being giving? Are you following through with your meditation practice? I know that's a piece you struggled with. I wrote that to myself because I did struggle with those. I mean, we know what we struggle with, right? If we're honest, we know what that is, right? Everybody knows what that is. We just don't talk about it. But suddenly when you're writing and you think, I'm not going to see this letter for 25 years, you just let that all hang out. And it was so what I did is I got a buddy that was going to trip sit me. I took the MDMA. He hung out with me for the 4 hours while this was going on. And I opened the capsules, told him what was in the capsules. He asked questions. He looked at pictures. And then I read all the letters out loud. So I didn't skim the letters. I read all the letters out loud, including the ones that I wrote to me and I wrote to Brian. And it blew me. I'm so grateful that we didn't take this lightly in 2013 and 1998. I mean, there is nothing that rocks your world more than a confrontive letter from you and your dead spouse from 20 years ago. That even, the piece was Brian smoked cigarettes. And so when I wrote the letter in 2013, and I'm thinking 25 years from now, I was like, he's probably not going to be around. So my letter that I wrote to me started off with, hey, how you doing? Are you alone? Did Brian die? That was the letter that I wrote in 2013 to me, because I figured by the time we hit 50, the likelihood of him having lung cancer and dying, he smoked a pack and a half a day for 30, 40 years. It's like, that's a likelihood. I didn't anticipate that I'd be reading it, 10 years after I wrote the letter, because he died in an automobile accident and burned alive. But that wisdom was still there. I wouldn't have done it if it wasn't for the courage that we had at those points in our life and the opportunity to bubble around. You can hear as I'm talking about it now. Just imagine when I was opening it up raw and fresh and seeing what 2013 Scott said to 2024 Scott.
Before we continue, I'm sorry for your loss, and I can feel that you're still grieving. And of course, we all know grieving is a process. And I think Mitzi alluded to it earlier, that it's clear your connection with Brian. And I just want to say thank you for being so vulnerable with us.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And you know what the better thing to say? See, I say this, I'm going to put this out for all of your listeners. The next time you see somebody who's really choked up by this, don't say, I'm sorry for your loss. turn to that person and say, congratulations, because the depth of our loss is directly related to the depth of our love. They're totally related to each other. Think about all the people who died today, and you don't give two shits about them. We have a relationship with a son, a daughter, a parent, and the depth of that relationship is directly related to the depth of your grieving. And so I celebrate the fact that I feel this way because it's a direct reflection of the life that we built together and the love that we had. It's a direct reflection of that. When we don't love as deeply, when we're not as vulnerable, when we're not as honest, when we're not as exposed, we don't get any pain. We have none. And so, we live in this world that says that type of pain is bad. Get over it, push it through it, get through it, go through it. And this pain's going to be with me forever because I planted this pain with seeds of love and not happenstance. And so this is actually a piece to be celebrated. And grief is not a problem to get over. It is not something to be fixed. Certainly if somebody's fueling something, we fuel lots of things, right? Somebody cuts us off while we're driving. They cut us off once. 6 days later, we're like, that person, how they driving down the road. How dare they do that? I mean, we could fuel that for years, right? Somebody says something to us and we say, I'm never going to forgive that person. We fuel that hate, that hardness for years with our mind. And so I'm not talking about the fueling piece, but the raw thing that you're seeing now, that's to be celebrated because it's part of who we are.
I would like you to repeat what we should say, because saying I'm sorry for your loss, it's common and it's comforting. But for someone who is still in that moment of grief, I love that you are redirecting and reframing how we support someone in grief. So I would like you to repeat that
and
phrase.
Somebody who's grieving is going to hear that. I mean, you come up to them and say congratulations. So you can come up to someone and say, I know this is hard, but I have to tell you, I'm really impressed that you lived your life in such a way with such courage that you're feeling this pain now. Don't think this is not a problem that you're feeling this way. This means that you lived your life fully and and exposed yourself.
Right.
Yeah. The other piece that you can say, I wrote about this in my second book. I've written 4 books on grief and loss. And in my I was a therapist. I can't believe this. I'm going to confess this to you because I feel so bad about this. For so many years, I was like, this is what Elizabeth Kubler-Ross says.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go through grief and dying and blah, 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 and go through the bargaining stage, the anger stage, blah, 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 blah. When she wrote that book, she wasn't writing about grief and loss. And she actually said she was writing about people who were struggling with terminal illness.
Yeah.
And she said after that she was so upset that this has got her model, her 5-stage model has been hijacked for grief, for people going into alcoholism recovery. Oh, I have to go through the stages of grief to deal with my addiction. And I pushed people to that, like there was something wrong with them. And if you're grieving, there's nothing wrong with you. And you know this if you're grieving. And the people that say, I'm sorry, or give you platitudes, and it's so empty. After Brian died, I called some financial whatever it was. I cannot even remember what it was. I'm going to swear. So block your ears out if you want to. I called and they connected me to a computer. And it was like, this piece of like, enter your account information, enter in this, enter in this. The fucking computer said, I'm so sorry for your loss. That's how hallmarky it's become. The computer, sorry for your loss. Computer doesn't even know me. I'm not even, can't even hear it. It just hears me typing in my code, my account number so they can do this. If you have someone who's grieving, here's the best thing you can do for them. 5 months after they've lost whoever, 6 months, a year, 3 years, whatever. Someone asked me this today. I could answer this question. And the best question you can say to them is, how's your grief? People don't say that because they're afraid that this person's going to like vomit their sadness all over them. They won't. I guarantee they will not. What you're inviting them to do is to kind of talk about their grief from a higher level, from a bird's eye view. And so, like, if somebody came up to me and said, how's your grief? I'd say, it was pretty good. It really came rolling back when I was doing this podcast interview. But now it's hardly here because I'm planting flowers. That's the type of response you're going to get. That's really helpful for the people who are grieving. The same thing's helpful for someone who's struggling with depression or anxiety because they tend to see things like black, right? You go up to a person and you say, how's your depression? Oh, I'm depressed. Or, what's going on? I've been depressed for years. But if you say, how's your grief on Monday? Or how's your depression on Monday? They'll be like, not so bad. How was it on Tuesday? Oh, it's worse. Wednesday, better. Thursday, that's how life is, right? It's really helpful for a person to hear that. And I came upon this, in the second book that I wrote on grief. After Brian died, I wrote a book, and then I ended up with 2 knee replacements. Total knee, metal bionic knees now. I'd be going on hikes and talking to folks. Do you know, everybody asked about my damn knees. How's your knees? They'd see me go, ugh. And they'd say, how's your knees? No one ever asked about my grief. Ever. Asked about my knees all the time. I mean, my knees are a big part of my life, but Brian was a huge part of my life. Probably bigger than my knees. And, how's your knees? Same piece. How's your grief? Very powerful thing to ask.
Thank you for sharing that with us, because I think it's important, especially for us on the podcast, that we wouldn't say, at least for me, I wouldn't say I'm sorry for your loss, because I thought that you were expressing those emotions, what you were feeling. I felt it was real. So I thought that's the thing that you say, to comfort and offer support. So I really want to thank you for sharing that and for reframing, giving me a new perspective on offering support to someone who's grieving. Thank you.
What I need is validation and not pity or sad. It's nothing. I'm talking normal now. I'm not teary-eyed. You talk about the dogs or this or that, the pigs or whatever, that farm, If you go to see a comedy movie, think about this. You probably have seen some comedy movies that are very hysterical. And when you tell people about the scene or you watch that movie again, it gets to that same scene that you may have seen like 150 times. You still laugh hysterically at that scene. It's really funny to you. And it's not that you're crazy. Someone doesn't come up to you, I'm sorry you're still laughing at that scene after seeing it 400 times. Or are you still laughing at that scene after seeing it 300 times? Get over it. It's a scene that you've had. And so just now I was replaying some movies talking about Brian. Of course you're going to be tearful. That's a tearful scene, right?
I think too, what you shared with us, which is so impactful, that unfortunately very few people during the course of their life, really let someone in and get that deep in a relationship where they let themselves be that vulnerable and connected to and part of another person's life. I think that so much, and I think it's gotten worse in the era that we're in currently, where things are surface and they don't go to that deepness. And so, as you say, that deep connection with someone is what gives you that deep joy and that deep loss. And I think that part of that sort of, I'm sorry for your losses, because I don't think a lot of people have given themselves in the same way. And so they haven't experienced that same kind of love and joy and loss as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. Right? If you want to really taste an apple, you need to get an apple in the fall and you need to hold it up to your mouth and you need to take a big bite out of it. If you just take an apple and you lick the outside, you're not going to get anything. Kind of gross, actually. It's like plastic. That's kind of where we're at. You're right.
Yes, indeed.
Apple lickers.
Great analogy.
Scott, I would love for you to share a little of what your daily meditation looks like.
So now my daily meditation really is back. You know, this is what I wrote my third book. This is actually the best book I've ever written. This is my third book. The first book was Come As You Are, Meditation in Grief. And the second book that I wrote 3 years later is called Come As You Are 3 years later. And this book, which is written 5 years later, is called Come As You Are 5 years later. And when I started getting into the paddleboarding with the dogs and writing the paddleboarding books and doing this stuff and going camping and doing this stuff, I really slacked off on my meditation practice. I write about this in this book. And what happened, and I didn't realize this, was that one of the benefits of a meditation practice is a life of equanimity, which is kind of meeting the vicissitudes of life with balance and the good things of life with balance. It's balanced. The equanimity is very similar to indifference. They're almost the same. They're almost on the surface. But in the deep part, you're setting yourself up for big problems. And so I set myself up for big problems by not meditating as much, thinking I had it together. And I had cultivated indifference instead of equanimity. And so to give you an idea of what the difference is, if it's raining outside and you go stand out in the rain, have no equanimity, no balance, no whatever. You're in the rain and you're like, I'm cold, I'm wet, this sucks. It's been raining every day since Thursday. God, what's going to happen to the plants that I planted? Rain, it's horrible. And go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. When you have equanimity, you go outside and you're like, it's raining. That's equanimity. Indifference is you're outside and you are, I don't give a shit that I'm wet. It's raining, but I don't give a shit that I'm wet. Who cares? Very similar. And so I cultivated this kind of indifference and not equanimity. And then last year, at the end of August, I met somebody and fell in love. And then everything went off the deep end because I had no equanimity. I had indifference and I thought I had my shit together and I didn't. And there's a piece that happens after you have, I I'm not a parent, but I imagine that these parents of kids that, have been shot, they're in schools, like they're like projecting out all the time now of like what's going to happen to my next kid when they're in school. Right? It's like a woman has a baby and then gets pregnant again and has lost their first child in the pregnancy, and then they're off the deep end. And so this type of anticipatory grief totally blew me out of the water. And I was like a maniac. And so what I had to do was come back to my once I realized that, I'm like, oh, I know what to do. I need to come back to my meditation. I've been on many 10-day retreats. So I took all my 10-day retreats that I've been on and stitched them all together. And I'd almost have a year of silent meditation under my belt over my lifetime. And so now as I do that, I'm just kind of maintaining the practice. I do Vipassana once a day. There's a place where I can call in and do group sits with Vipassana students around the country. And there's group sit at 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m., 10 a.m. There's one at night from 7 p.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m., 10 p.m. And so you can call in on any of those. I try to do every week, there's a half day of Vipassana program of like 3 hours. Once a month, you can go online now with Zoom and do a 1 day Vipassana. And so those are the pieces that have helped me kind of get my act back together. And especially Vipassana, which I talk about in all those grief books, has been a big, important piece.
Thank you for sharing that. I also noticed that you have silent retreats that you offer. Am I correct?
No, I do not do silent retreats anymore. I've participated in many silent retreats,
Okay.
and they are all over the country. If you are interested, all you have to do is do Vipassana meditation retreat. They are 10 days long. Actually, they're 11 days long because the first day they count as day 0. And then you stay through. So you get 10 solid days of silence. And they are great to do. They're free. You don't have to pay a dime to go do them. You can donate afterwards, but they won't take your money as payment when you go. They'll let you donate after you. So when you go there, you really are experiencing this meditation practice from the goodwill of others. It is truly a pay it forward kind of thing. And so when you finish the course, if you give them money, you're giving them money for a future student or a future person to go do their course that they use to buy food in the future. And so, yeah, the courses are totally free.
Thank you so much, Scott.
Yeah.
How can our listeners contact you?
All you have to do is Google G. Scott Graham, which is my name at the bottom of all my books. G. Scott Graham. And I'm assuming people can contact you guys, right, about this stuff. So this is what I'm going to do for you people that are listening. My most current book, I'm going to give these guys the digital copy of my most current book. And all you have to do, if you want a copy of this book, just message these guys. If this is up on YouTube, put it in the message, say, send me a copy of Scott's book, and these guys can send you a digital copy of this that you can put on your Kindle, your tablet, wherever, and read away.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much.
Okay.
What message would you like to leave with us and our listeners?
I think the core message, if I were to give one message, I would say that the most important thing to know is that life is not about being happy. We are polluted with this marketing baloney that somehow once we do this or have that or buy this or master this technique or read this book or go to this retreat or that we're going to be happy. That is not what life's about. You have to have the dark with the light. That's just what we've got seasons. That's not what life's about. Life's not about farting rainbows. And there are people out there that are trying to sell us this myth that something, if we do this, will be farting rainbows and all our problems. If acquiring things would make us happy, then rich people would never kill themselves. And there was just people that have success would not kill themselves. It's the real truth of life is having a sense of balance, of equanimity, so that when the true parts of life happen, the good stuff, the bad stuff, we're not rocked by it. That's the real skill. That's the thing to build and grow toward. Equanimity, not happiness.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Well,